Okay, so in this episode, I want to talk to you about incorporation, the different forms of business, and when to incorporate, things to consider. There are a lot of things to consider. This is things that I consider important. Okay, so first let's just talk a minute about what are the main types of business that a small business person or a startup business would be looking at. The first one is the proprietorship. And again, I should stress this is relevant to Canada and especially Alberta in 2020. Different times can mean different things, different places may mean different things. But in Canada, at least in 2020 and the last 20 or so years, a business usually starts out, well, the first thing is it could be a proprietorship. What that means is you're the owner operator, you are the owner, and I'm not going to try, I won't pretend to be a lawyer. You can talk to a lawyer about details, but essentially you and a business are one. Okay. Now you start doing business, you might or might not have a business name. Either way, once you start doing business, whether you have a business name or not, if you haven't incorporated or anything, then you're going to be a proprietorship. Now, the advantage of the proprietorship mainly is it's relatively cheap because it doesn't take much to get going, and quick and easy. The disadvantage is that because you and a business are one, if the business gets sued, it's you that's being sued, not just the business. And so you're liable for whatever goes on in the business. The other form that goes next to that is maybe you and your neighbor, or you and a friend, or you and a relative started a business, in which case then you're a partnership. Sort of like a proprietorship. You share in the profits, etc., etc., except that you're both liable. If you're doing that, maybe you should be the broke partner with the brains or whatever, and the other one with the money, because if the business gets sued, it's the partners, and they'll go after the deepest pockets. So the partner with the most money is the one that's going to get sued. So you have that. By being in a partnership, working with someone else, you also have the issues of getting along, who makes what decisions, and how to make that work, and that can be difficult. But that would be the other common form. And final thing that's normal for a new or small business is incorporation. In other words, start a corporate or a company. And that's preferable, but it has its cost. Let's just start with what a corporation is, though. That means you've registered, you've created, not registered a name, but created a company under the provincial or federal laws. That business is a separate legal entity. It legally stands alone. And you'll have shareholders, your shareholders, you have shares, directors, you have to keep corporate minutes, etc. And it does provide some protection and some advantages, certainly much more flexibility for tax planning, and plus you have some limited liability. In other words, if the business gets sued, then it's not you being sued, it's the company. Now, just to make it clear, for instance, if you're borrowed from the bank, they probably want you to guarantee the loan, so that you'd be liable for that. Plus there are certain directors' liabilities and things. So again, you want to talk to a lawyer and know what those are. But there is certainly a lot less risk that way. There is a certain legal protection that's available to you that way. I should stress, though, there are liabilities. Directors could be liable, which would probably be you if it's your company. So you start your corporation, and if you hire some people, you don't pay them, or you guarantee a loan, and it doesn't get paid, then you're being on a hook. I should also point out that that does not get you around breaking the law. I always like to say, you can't say, but officer, my company ordered that hit. I'm sorry, if you break the law, they're going to go beyond the corporate shell and look at you. So, and I'm hoping that anybody watching this video or I ever talk to wouldn't want to break the law anyway. But so there are some limitations to that. Those are things to be discussed with your lawyer, keeping in mind different places, different times, etc. Okay, so those are your main things. Corporation definitely is the best. Now, I should point out there are other forms that a business could take, but for the small business person starting out and these are the real normal options. If your business gets bigger and you get more successful, there may be other things you want to look at with your accountants and lawyers and that. But to start, that's where you're looking. And to be honest, then you'll be talking to accountants and lawyers and spending lots of money, I can assure you that. So, when do you incorporate, or what do you do? Well, you've started a business. Am I going to incorporate? Do I want to incorporate? Well, there's 3 criteria I tend to look at. As I pointed out, being a proprietorship is easiest and the cheapest, but it has liability issues and not the same flexibility from a tax planning point of view, and some other things. So first thing I would look at is, are you concerned about being sued? And that's probably accountant for you, your insurance agent, and especially your lawyers. Because if legal liability is a concern, then my comment is forget all the rest, incorporate. Because that's, you don't want to lose your home and your assets. And so you want to protect them the best you can. If you're not concerned about being sued, and I should say that that's the most important thing, the next thing might be image. Strangely enough, there are people who believe that that they have a sense of security dealing with a corporation versus dealing with a proprietorship. I would call it a false sense of security, but nonetheless, they do. There can also be cases where you're required to. We see that quite often in the oil industry with consultants, where the company that's hiring them says, yes, we're going to hire you, but you'll have to form a company and do the rest. In which case, you got no choice. So, and it's an image thing, so you may decide that it's worth it to be incorporated. I would say that if your business is at all successful, sooner or later you probably will want to incorporate. The final one is the tax one, and you may notice that when I talk about taxes, I often put taxes last, and I do that here. It's the final one. And that is, while there is flexibility, when you're not making much money, there may not be real advantages. Now there can be, because we might be that we're going to lose money for a year or two and then start to make a lot of money. So maybe you did want to get incorporated right away, and you can have loss carry forwards for the future, and that. But there's also, again, there's the cost, and yeah, there can be some tax flexibility, but usually at the very beginning, not so much so, as much as when you get bigger and start to make more money. But those are things to consider, but you got to look at the cost. Do you want to spend the money to incorporate? The taxes last. Now, it used to be, and it probably still is, I just haven't heard it lately, people had rules of thumb. Once you were making a certain amount of revenue, it's time to incorporate. Just to be clear, I personally hate rules of thumb. They can play a role, but I really, really downplay them, because every situation is different, every person's different. So you should be looking at your situation and talking to your accountant, and if necessary, your lawyer, and determining if it's time to incorporate, and determining if there's liabilities. So again, first issue, are you worried about being sued? Are there legal concerns? If so, then that kind of takes it over everything. If not, what's the image, or are you required to by certain clients, or will you be able to get certain parts of your business easier? And finally is the tax part, which, yes, there is flexibility, there are some advantages to be incorporated, but you've got to be making money really to take advantage of those. And again, talk to your accountant. So those are the things that I recommend that you consider when you're looking at tax issues. Other professionals might have other things that they consider important. By all means, please go listen to them, but please consider what I've said. So that's the issues on incorporation. This is Dave's Business Insights, and this is part of the Momentum series. I hope you have found this helpful and informative. If you have, please remember to like it and share it, and please subscribe to this channel. And thanks for watching this episode of Dave's Business Insights.